It's a pleasure to be here in Mumbai. It's my first visit, actually, to Mumbai. I have a team in Bangalore that I've seen for the last several days, and then came here yesterday. But interesting topic about gateway to growth, and you mentioned the question, which I resonate with, whether or not is acquiring IP rights a necessity or a driver. And I can tell you most certainly with respect to Philips and the other companies that I've been with. I used to lead IBM's intellectual property business for a number of years, and several other companies, that it's my thorough belief that it's both a necessity and a driver. It's a necessity for a company, both large and small, to think about how IP relates to your business, right? So, and you have to figure out a way to have IP protect your business, and the way you invest in that, the way you invest in R&D, and the way that R&D is translated into intellectual property. And it's a driver for Philips. It's a driver for growth for the company. And that's a message straight from my CEO on down. He and I have regular discussions on this, on really what's the value of IP to the company. And it's a very simple answer. I mean, we invest very heavily into research and development. We invest very heavily into patents and trademarks and copyrights and domain names and trade secrets. So it's all, and we take a very holistic approach, which is how I think one should take a look at with respect to IP. A holistic approach looking at intellectual property in general, not just singling out patents. So it started very early on in 1891. We've celebrated last year 100 years of research in Philips. I also am celebrating over 100 years of intellectual property growth from, we started a little over 100 years ago, the IP organization within Philips. So that's how long it's been important to us. And we've got a presence in more than 100 different countries. We've got a lot of R&D sites in manufacturing in a lot of different continents, including here in India. And we've got a lot of different types of businesses. So we have evolved over time. We started as a light bulb company, and we moved into three sectors, primarily healthcare, consumer lifestyle, and lighting. And the geographies, as you can see, Western Europe, North America, other mature geographies, and some of the growth geographies, including India. So the main statement that we're trying to make with respect to innovation is that we changed our image, we changed our brand slogan several years ago to, it's called Innovation in You. So basically what we try and do is show the ability of a company to translate innovation and showing how it matters to people. And the goal is to improve the lives of 3 billion people per year by the year 2025. And my organization, and specifically, we try and locate offices where we do business. So we have a lot of business here in India, so I have an office in Bangalore. We do a lot of business in China, so I have offices in Shanghai, also in Chengdu, and also in Japan. I have an office in Hong Kong, and you can see the other offices worldwide. So the way that I try and do it is we co-locate with the research facilities that we have within Philips. So that way we can make sure that we are aligned with that strategy, with the research strategy, also with the business strategy. We have a big portfolio that we turn unexpected possibilities into great innovations. So you may say 64,000 patent rights. I'm a firm believer in quality over quantity. So you may think that 64,000 patent rights is a lot. It is. It has accumulated over time. It has evolved with some of the acquisitions that we've made. We also acquire IP. But more importantly, it's enabling our business. It's enabling us to sell worldwide the products that we have, the freedom of action that we have, as well as providing a deterrent. So that way we can have this freedom of action to compete in the market, as well as providing a degree of exclusivity in some of the markets that we enjoy. The integrated intellectual asset management approach is not unique. I think a lot of companies embrace this, but this is a good example. This is our Senseo brand coffee, and we have a number of patents, trademarks, designs, copyrights, domain names, and trade secrets. I think that collectively, and this is where I mentioned at the very beginning, this holistic approach. I have people on my team that manage all different aspects of IP. So I don't have just patent people or just trademark people or design people. I have intellectual property counsels that can handle everything with respect to the business, with respect to the intellectual property. And together we work with the businesses directly, one-on-one, and going with them, determining what their needs are, translating that into the most effective way to protect that business. And that's what I mean by integrated intellectual asset management approach. The innovation to market is, and this was the title of my presentation, really is powered by an end-to-end approach. And the way that we do this, and the way I think it's essential for companies, is to look at IP from the very beginning, from the ideation, from the idea, the concept of creating something for your company. That's when the IP strategy should start. And it starts before the research is done. So people are pontificating in a room, deciding this is the business strategy that our company, Philips, should take. We work with them. I have my IP councils in that room, and we're deciding, okay, so this is the strategy based on what we see in the world, based on what we see as a patent landscape, as an IP landscape. This is a good idea or a bad idea, right? And so we are inserting ourselves into that process. The research takes place, and then you have the transfer, you have the development, the go-to-market strategy, and then you have the sales, and then the end of life. So you know, everywhere from patent filings and the strategy to doing risk assessments, so deciding whether or not it makes sense to go into these areas, doing design filings, trademark filings, once again, this holistic approach, and then enforcement, handling claims, and also licensing in and licensing out. That's the kind of work that we do. We define strategies based on the business. So right at the very beginning on the left-hand side of this chart, you see business strategy. So we're going, as I mentioned, we are lockstep with the general managers of each of our businesses from an IP perspective, getting with their business strategy people, understanding what that strategy is, and looking at it from a long-term perspective. So many companies are looking at 2 to 3 years out. Some of them are even shorter term, 1 to 2 years, because guess what? That's what the revenue is demanding, right? The company, the people that are sitting on your board, your shareholders, are demanding that you have revenue growth. And so companies are looking at a very short-term approach to address those problems. And I'm trying to look at 5 to 10 years out. So I work with the strategists in the businesses and say, what does our business look like? Or what should we look like? Well, how should we evolve in 5 to 10 years down the road? And then you translate that into an IP strategy. So you see the key IP strategy input parameters. So you're looking at the basic IP position that we have. And then you say, is it good, is it bad, is it ugly? And you have to decide, based on the answer to that question, you should change the way that you think about how you're approaching that business. Should you acquire IP to fill those gaps? Should you immediately go into some more robust and proactive research so that way you can address the IP gaps in that manner? Or should you collaborate with others and do third-party alliances so that way you can address the gaps in that way? So you look at these business control points, looking at additional parameters, IP risk,